Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. In this session, we'll explore some essential best practices for writing Python functions. We'll cover naming conventions, docstrings, and the importance of writing pure functions. In Python, the recommended naming convention for functions is snake case. This means using lowercase letters with words separated by underscores. Let's write a few example functions. So here in Jupyter Notebooks, I have some cells opened up. So let's write some example function names. So in every function, you're going to have def, and then we write the function name. So here's an example, and then you can put whatever in there. Here's another example, get user data, and then you can. Another one could be filter results. So notice how the functions usually perform actions. So it's best to start with a verb to make the function's purpose a little bit more clear. So if you have a function meant for internal use within a module, meaning it shouldn't be accessed directly from outside, prefix its name with an underscore. So I'll just show you guys what I'm talking about. So if this is an internal function, you want to put an underscore before the function name. So you can do something like this. It can be calculate internal metrics, something like that. So notice I don't have anything in these parentheses as the arguments, but in the future you're probably going to have to put something in there. So this is an example of an internal function. For functions that return a Boolean value, so meaning true or false, it's good practice to use prefixes like is underscore, has underscore, or can underscore to signal their purpose. So let me just show you some example ones. So it could be def is valid, email. And then some other ones could be has sufficient balance. Another one can be can access resource. So here the function is probably going to check if it's a valid email, and then this one could be a bank account, has sufficient balance, and then the argument could be the account. And then this one can access resource, so you could put in the user's ID and then the resource to determine if it's true or false. Another best practice is to always include, not always, but you can sometimes include what's called a docstring. Below your function definition. Think of docstrings as the instruction manuals for your functions. They should describe the function's purpose, inputs, outputs, and potential errors. Here's an example for a function that calculates a monthly mortgage payment. So I'll just write this in a new cell. So it could be calculate monthly payment. So here I'm just defining the arguments, principal, interest rate, loan term years, and their respective data types. We can start with the docstring. Purpose calculates the monthly payment for a fixed rate loan. Arguments could be principal, which you're just going to describe the arguments. and then it could potentially return what we're looking for it to return, which is going to be the monthly payment amount. And then also indicate any potential errors that can arise. And then we're going to put an example output. So I'm just going to put random numbers. So it would be the principal amount would be, could put 1,000,000 right here, interest rate, and then loan term years, usually it's 30. And I'm not going to run it, but the output will be 530.33. So if you were to check, you would put that information in there, and then it should come out to be that. So let's write the value error conditional. Whoops, forgot to end this docstring. So docstring ended, and then so it's like if principal, interest rate, or loan term years is less than 0, or if it's negative, just raise the value error and just say all input values must be positive. And then I'm not going to put in the logic for this function, but just to show monthly payment. That's because it's going to return a monthly payment, but I'm not going to include the logic for that. So this is an example of using a docstring in this calculate monthly payment function. Another common mistake that can make your code harder to manage is modifying variables that are shared across the program from inside a function. So, for example, I'm going to go ahead and write another function that I'm going to call it calculate mean with side effects. We'll go into more about that soon. So here, calculate mean with. So numbers is going to be, you're going to pass in a list of numbers. Sorry, before this, I want to define a variable global sum. And then define calculate mean with side effects numbers. So here, include the global variable in there. And then call the function. So here's the global variable that I defined. Here's the function. We're going to pass in a list of numbers, and inside this function, we're going to call this global variable again. And then we're going to assign it to the sum of numbers, global sum, and then return global sum divided by len numbers. Let's run it. So that's going to be the mean. But the global sum changes because we put it inside this function. Now, so this function not only calculates the mean, but also changes the global variable, which makes it impure and potentially unpredictable. A better approach is to write a pure function, which, let's write a pure function of this. So run that, yeah, we get 2.8, but this function is self-contained. Its output depends solely on its input. And pure functions like this make your code more reliable and easier to debug. So to recap, today we covered recommended naming conventions for functions, when to use underscores and prefixes, how to write clear docstrings, and why pure functions matter. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.